Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. This is Football at 4.
And Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you locally by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long. Wild Wild West, Tropicana, Harrah's Resort, Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast, which is out right now. You can check out, and you can check him out on the live video on our YouTube channel. And he joins me right now for a Monday edition of Football at 4. What's going on, Mosh?
What's up, Michael? How you doing?
And Eagles win, man. Does it feel like it today?
Not too much.
All right, let's start with that. Not too much, but a road win in the NFL in a game that you really did not play well. What does it say about where this team is or what this team might be?
You know, that's a great question about what might be. I'm not sure you derive a whole lot from the future other than I think you can take more about the moment, perseverance, coming up with some big plays on defense. Clearly that has sustainability if you can do what you do on what they did on defense. You know, blocking a punt, that's not something you can hang your hat on and say, next time we're in that kind of situation when it's neck and neck like that in the fourth quarter, we'll just block the punt. But those things do happen over the course of the year. And what really gets lost is that if you're the Panthers today, we've talked every week about the Eagles and all the touchdowns they've negated by their stupid mistakes and things like that. If you're the Panthers today, you had a ball in the end zone and 4 guys trying to jump at it, and they start clawing at the ball instead, and it bounces out and it becomes a safety. I mean, that's how close they were to winning this game, and that's, again, something you can't hang your head on going forward. But I do like that they persevered. I do like that they figured some things out there in the fourth quarter. But when you try to project a win like that over the rest of the year, what you're really looking for is what did we do well that I think continue for the rest of the year. 3 picks doesn't seem like something that's sustainable for this defense or a trend that you've seen before. And certainly a block punt is not sustainable as well.
No, all right. So you're right about the block punt thing and having, those special things helping you get the win. But I want to talk about, John Gannon took a lot of shots to the defense. They gave up 83 points in 2 games, to which I kind of said, look, against Atlanta and San Francisco, they didn't really have problems. They had some problems, but they played pretty well. Most teams aren't Dallas and Kansas City weaponry. Most teams are Carolina, Atlanta, San Francisco. You've got the Raiders, Detroit, Denver. That's who most teams are. So is the defense equipped to win games for them?
Well, that's what we kind of talked about on the Inside the Birds podcast, and I wrote about it on InsideTheBirds.com. It feels like this team is going to have a chance to win when it plays a team that doesn't really have a very good offensive line or maybe kind of an erratic quarterback. But when they play a team that's clearly more established than them, they're really going to struggle. And you're fair to point out that the rest of the schedule after Tampa is going to be a bunch of games where you look forward and you look at it and say, some of these games are kind of that coin flip variety where if the Eagles play well, they can win. And certainly that's the case. And I think it sets up for this team to be in that 7 to 8 win range that I thought that they were going to be in. I said from the start, Mike, that they were not it was going to be an ugly first 6 games because of the schedule. It's a really tough schedule. And honestly, I still think it's pretty difficult because instead of some real give-me's, we're talking about those games coming up after Tampa as coin flip games. Denver's good. They can win. They win at home a lot, and that's a road game for the Eagles. Vegas is a Jekyll and Hyde team, but they play better at home. That's a road team for the Eagles. The Lions are one of those teams that just, it's the whole you don't want to play them because they tend to play pretty hard. Now, that's still a game that you think the Eagles have a good chance to win. New Orleans is a Jekyll and Hyde team. None of those teams feel like Eagles should be, Eagles should be the favorite in that game, maybe other than the Lions. So that's a great barometer for this team. When you play all those opponents back to back to back there, do they win more than they lose? Do they show up? Even when they lose, do they at least represent themselves well? We'll see.
Well, if their defense plays the way it did yesterday, they should be competitive in those games. And then it comes down to where I think that they need to have – look, I talked about last week. I must have said it multiple times. They scored 30 points twice already this year. They didn't score 30 points at all last year. So there has been some growth in this offense. But where's the growth coming from? Because Sirianni has been – quite frankly, I want to like Sirianni. But I thought his game plan yesterday was awful again. I don't know that Hurts has been a Pro Bowler, but where have they seen that growth to where the offense has scored 30 points a couple times? And how does Sirianni kind of grow into a better play caller? I mean, he has got to be able to help his personnel out more.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm in total agreement with you that this offense lacks a flow, lacks a rhythm, lacks an identity. And I can't believe after Andy Reid and after Doug Peterson, we're actually talking about a head coach who runs the ball considerably less than both those guys. That is probably the most mind-boggling thing for me. If you notice, one of the plays that works well for the Eagles is the occasional read option, not RPO, just straight read option, where Jalen Hurts kind of fakes the handoff, watches the edge defender crash toward the middle, and then he takes off for a run. Well, almost every single one of those successful read option plays is set up by an actual run before it, because you have to actually make the opponent think you're going to run a little bit. So I keep thinking, if you just even if you want to do more of that college-y stuff or new wave stuff, just running the ball in general with your good offensive line will help you set that up. And then you can do some more read option with Jalen Hurts. And then after you burn a defense like that, then the defense has to adjust, and maybe you start seeing more openings in the passing game, because right now their passing game is very sporadic as well. It feels like you go to Devontae Smith because he knows how to get open, but everybody else, you kind of have to hope they get open, or there's a blown coverage, or you have enough time for Quez Watkins to completely lose somebody on a double move. That happens like once a game. That's not a consistent offensive recipe. If you remember Doug Peterson's first year, it did help that he started off 3-0, so he kind of bought some currency there, and Carson Wentz was playing well. But they only won 7 games that year. But the one defining thing about that year to me was that they led the NFL in time of possession, and that it seemed in every game, whether or not they executed wasn't the issue. They had a plan, and they had a good functional offense, and just sometimes Carson was a rookie and throw a pick, or things would happen. You play a team that's better than you, but you understood the offensive game plan, and you liked the way Doug back then was counteracting what defenses do. I honestly can't tell you right now what Nick Sirianni's identity is as an offensive play caller.
I agree with that. I don't know what his identity is, but I would say this. If I'm allowed to give free advice to Nick Sirianni, and I walk into a room and I say my personnel, Nick, your best personnel is you got you elected to keep Zach Ertz. Him and Goddard are your two best weapons. You got this kid Gainwell and Sanders. Work from the inside out. Like, you keep trying to hit the home run with the least experienced players you have. Utilize your experience, and then you can rely on your home run hitters, but you don't have to rely on them so much, and you might be more apt to get more from them.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I don't give people advice, but based on just studying the league and how teams go, when you're a new team and you're a new coach and a first-time play caller trying to establish an identity, you tend to want to put the ball in the hands of the guys that you think can come through for you because they're your proven weapons. To me, there's 3 guys that fit that bill. 1, Miles Sanders, who I think is being criminally underused. 2, as you just mentioned, Dallas Goedert, who, listen, I like Zach Ertz. I'm not an anti-Zach Ertz guy, but I have said from the beginning that his presence on this team sort of feels like Alshon Jeffrey's presence on the team last year. Like, yes, he's good. He's probably better theoretically than what you have, but he's also stunting the development of some of your other younger players. And I think Dallas Goedert, having only 50% of the tight end targets or reps, even snaps, takes away from that. You need like kind of big physical presence to catch the ball, turn upfield, and run. And Dallas is good at that. And to only see 2 to 3 targets a game over the last 2 weeks, to me, is criminal underuse. And I still think that they don't use Jalen Reagor enough in the short game as an end around guy, as a Deebo Samuel like quick strike weapon. Because when the ball's in his hands, he does tend, whether it's on kickoff or on the reverse that he had last week or on the screen, he tends to do well there. I just feel like they have to figure him out also.
Yeah. There's so much to unpack on this offensive side of the ball because, realistically, let me ask you this. Are you seeing guys down the seam that Hurts is missing? I mean, they showed it on the broadcast a handful of times yesterday. You saw Hurts have his hand on his head like, oh, I'm sorry, I missed you. That was with Devonta Smith. He had another one with Watkins. But is that happening more than the television broadcast is showing us that you're aware of?
Yeah, we do our tape review podcast that come out every Wednesday. And I know last Wednesday from the Kansas City game, Adam and I, we had both talked to different sources, league sources who watched the tape and graded the tape. And they felt like there were plays left out on the field. Not all the time, but enough that it's concerning. And one of the things that Jalen does, Mike, is
explain why that happens. What is he missing and why?
I was just about to go into there.
Right, exactly.
Like sometimes these routes have to develop, right? You're not just going to be open right off the bat. There's double moves. There's high-low patterns against certain formations. And one of the things that you're seeing Jalen do a little bit too much, and the coaching staff has even talked about it, is not just that he leaves the pocket early, but when he leaves the pocket, he's got to keep his eyes down the field. That's what the best running or dual threat quarterbacks do. They can run, navigate the pressure, but still keep their eyes down the field to make plays. In fact, I thought Jalen did a good job of that last year. If you remember that first touchdown he threw to Greg Ward, I guess Packers, I want to say, was kind of a deep over. He just kept going right, and then finally was able to locate Ward and throw the touchdown. And he doesn't seem to have that innate ability this year. And it seems like when he's out of the pocket, he's just trying to get out of there and either throw the ball out of bounds or run. And by the way, when you get a guy to jump off sides, throw the ball in the field of play. You got a free play, throw the damn ball in the field of play. It doesn't matter what happens.
Yeah, no question. The offense seems very dependent on the wide receivers screens, and I'm looking at it like, fine, if that's what you think, but they don't have good blocking wide receivers. Like Jalen Reagor and Quez Watkins, they're the guys out there blocking for the screens. I mean, that doesn't sound like a recipe for a big play to me.
No, it doesn't, and it didn't help that it definitely felt like the Carolina Panthers, as every team, they watch the tape, they know what to expect. It felt like they expected a lot of those screens. And when that happens, you need to go to your plan B or C. I think they have okay personnel. I mean, they've certainly got a good enough offensive line to be able to run those type of delayed screens where, you kind of let the line come and your running back leaks out and he's got two linemen and a receiver or a tight end ahead of him. They can do that, but did not have success with that in Carolina. And to your point about everything does seem very schemed, right? And so there's two schools of thought of that. If Nick Sirianni feels like the only way for him to get Jalen Hurts successful is to scheme up everything and short stuff and gimmick, I don't want to say gimmicky stuff or college, just new wave offense. Is that Nick Sirianni's way of saying he doesn't trust Jalen Hurts to just be, conventional drop back quarterback who's going to run an offense and be able to run and escape pressure at his own, mindset? Or is that the offense Nick Sirianni is just always going to run no matter what quarterback he has? That I don't know what to make of it, and I don't want to put words in his mouth. Yeah. But if I'm interpreting right now, I'm thinking he probably feels like he has to run that kind of offense for Jalen Hurts. But if this is an evaluation year, don't you have to run the offense you want to run and see if your quarterback fits it?
Yeah.
Because then you're either on a new quarterback or you're adjusting your offense.
He's trying to serve two masters.
Yes, he's caught between two worlds here, I think.
And I thought he called a terrific game against Atlanta. So it's in there. Like, I thought he did a great job of accentuating the positives of the personnel he had. Did a much better job of getting the ball to people in space, getting them the ball and letting them make plays. The last 3 or 4 weeks, not so much.
Well, how often the one big advantage he had in that Atlanta game is that nobody knew who Nick Sirianni was. Nobody knew what his scheme is. Nobody knew about how he was going to match that scheme to his personnel. He was very vanilla, as we talked about in the preseason. He barely played any of his starters. So while it was a good game plan, you also know that Atlanta's defense is not all that good. They don't have a whole lot of pass rushers. And that was his kind of, first putting of film out on tape. And again, some of the things Carolina did defensively were clearly intended to take away some of the short stuff that the Eagles have been thriving on.
Yeah. Geoff Mosher, Football at 4. Obviously, you mentioned, the tight ends, Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz, and you said, is there a reason, are they not schemed into the playbook? I mean, is this just something that Sirianni doesn't, are they not getting a lot of snaps? Are they not in the offense?
No, they're there. I mean, they're in the offense. It's just that, when you're running a lot of screens, those balls tend to go to the wide receivers or the running backs. When you're, going deep down the field, those will be your wide receivers. I just don't feel like there's been much of an And again,
Well, I mean, like
it's not,
I
it's
bring
not
this
like
up.
there are not intermediary routes. There
Yeah.
are intermediary
Well,
routes.
I bring it up in that fashion. The first play in the game against Dallas, Goddard catches for 38 yards. Boom. In the game's biggest moment yesterday, 20-yard pass on 2nd and 9. Who's there? Goddard. I mean,
Right.
those are your dependable guys, and they're working. I just don't understand why they're getting away. So I'm wondering, are they not out? They're not getting the snaps. I haven't seen the snap count. Are they not out on the field as much? Are they not getting? Are they not a part of the game plan or the scheme as much that maybe I'm missing? Because
no, they're out there,
Mhm.
and the only thing that you notice is that they pretty much play the same number of snaps. So sometimes it's because they're on the field at the same time. Sometimes it's one for the other. But when Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz are on the field at the same time, you know which one's the inline blocker. It's Dallas Goedert because Zach Ertz is not a very good blocker. So that prohibits him in pass routes on those specific formations or personnel groupings, I should say. And then when he is out there as the lone tight end, there's Devontae also out there. There's Jalen Reagor out there. There's Quez out there. I do think that, you saw last week against Kansas City. I think I charted it. I'm not sure if I shared this with you, but his first 12 completions, 11 of them for Jalen Hurts were to the first read, where you can just watch the tape and tell that it was schemed. You go to this guy on that play because the first quarter was all of a schemed up offense. If they can do that for certain other players, they can probably do it for Dallas Goedert as well, and they probably need to.
1,000%. You mentioned Sanders. Is this offense a better fit for Gainwell?
That's a great question.
You put your coffee down pretty quick on that one.
Yeah, well, yeah, you threw it at me.
Dude,
I don't know.
Should I extrapolate a little longer so you can take a sip?
No, it's all right. It only stays hot for so long.
I know.
What was I trying to say? So I don't. In order to answer your question, is this offense more conducive to Kenneth Gainwell than Miles Sanders? I would have to ask you what the offense is.
Right, but I somebody mentioned yesterday, I don't know if I saw it in a response to something on our, but whatever it was, that Gainwell is more in the style of McCaffrey, Kamara, that newer style of running back that they're not big, but they catch the ball, they're elusive in the backfield, So is Gainwell more usable in this offense? And I would ask you this. Did they just simply not trust Sanders? I mean, obviously, he had to get taken off the field because he went out of bounds twice. Is that something that is perpetual that they keep seeing in practice that makes them not trust him?
I had a source tell me that last week that we need to go back to training camp and remember how good he was. Because Miles Sanders had a great training camp, and it was described to me as a Pro Bowl level training camp. So I imagine that the only thing we know of that Miles didn't do.
Oh, it's a bad time for Geoff Mosher to kind of go out on us here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. There he goes. All right. The only thing that Miles Sanders did not do was
catch the ball well at training camp.
Okay.
But that has not been an issue throughout the season. Lord knows he's caught about 30 screens throughout 5 weeks here. I mean, he's caught the ball fairly well. So up until not running out of bounds twice against Panthers, I thought he was having, from an assignment standpoint, a pretty good year. You're asking if Kenneth Gainwell fits the offense, but they're not used similarly. Gainwell is used more as a receiver, but not just as a receiving running back. He lines up at wide receiver, and especially in the 2-minute and 4-minute drill, when they want to move fast and get pass mismatches, they do put Kenneth Gainwell in there. But, to me, your answer is, well, he fits.
All right, Moshe, you're freezing up on us. We're talking about Gainwell
For this offense.
All right, you froze up on us a little bit there. He's freezing up on us. We're coming to the end here with Geoff Mosher because I do want to ask him if we can get him back in to the stream. There he is. All right, I want to move on real quick because we got a couple of minutes left. You were talking about. I want to talk about what Slay insinuated yesterday. Slay 2 picks, Nelson a pick. Were they used differently, or does Darnold stink?
Yes.
Now, if you're watching the video, you got a full encapsulation of him taking that question in.
Yeah. Yes.
We got to get him back on here because I want to hear the response to Slay.
What's going on today?
I don't know,
Mike?
man. You got bad internet connection. Yeah, you got bad internet connection. That's what's going on.
I don't. This hasn't happened in like 3 months. I don't know why all of a sudden. But anyway,
and you were rolling good for 17 minutes.
That's how you know something's bad's gonna happen.
All right.
So
give me the thought.
There was more man coverage.
Right.
Right.
Because Slay insinuated that he moved with DJ Moore.
Yes. And by the way, they played more man than their season average last week against Kansas City because you saw Slay trailing Travis Kelce a little bit. They're still mostly zone, and they were still mostly zone, I believe, against the Panthers. But there were situations where when they did play man, they played sides, or they played trail, meaning that Darius was going to be on the DJ Moore, and Nelson would probably be on Robbie Anderson. So it worked out for them, but that's also because they generated a lot of pressure. And, for all the flack we give Jalen Hurts for leaving the pocket early, Sam Darnold gets like the tiniest amount of pressure on him, and you start to see those feet churning and that like almost like deer in the headlights look from him.
Hey, Friday I said, look, this guy is what he is. He's a turnover guy, and it's not just it's interceptions. He fumbles a lot. You got to get after him. The Eagles did a great job there. Did you hear what Dungy said last night at halftime?
I did not.
So he says Bills are playing the perfect scheme for Kansas City. Tampa 2, safeties way off the line, make them keeping everything in front, and Kansas City has no place to go. The Eagles ran that. That Gannon is not an idiot. He knows what he's doing. He just doesn't have the horses.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, of course you play 2 deep safeties against Kansas City because they have weapons. And the idea of playing 2 deep safeties is a lot of teams do that. But when you build your team around that, example, the Colts are a big cover 2 team. They also have Darius Leonard at linebacker, and they have a 320-pound defensive tackle who kind of takes on those double teams. So you can play cover 2 or inverted Tampa 2, whatever you want to play. You just got to be able to stop the big runs. You got to keep Kansas City to modest second and third downs. The Eagles couldn't do that because they couldn't stop the running game.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So it's the right scheme. They have the wrong personnel.
Right scheme, wrong personnel. But even within cover 2, you can do things underneath that cover 2, Mike. You can play 2-man, which is 2 deep safeties, but man underneath. You can play man one side, zone on the other. You can be deceptive post-snap, meaning you have one safety in the box. By the way, you saw this yesterday. Anthony Harris would line up in the box and then run back to the top to really give a 2-deep look, even though it started off as a one deep look. I think that's what you have to do against good offenses. You have to be confusing and not just telegraph what you're doing. That was one of the issues with the scheme for the last 2 weeks against Dallas and Kansas City.
All right, the latest Inside the Birds podcast is out. They go a lot deeper on all the topics and more as the Eagles get to 2-3 by beating the Carolina Panthers. Their 2 wins have both come on the road this year. The Philadelphia Eagles. Geoff Mosher at Geoff Mosher NFL on Twitter. Check out at Inside Birds and the Inside the Birds podcast in the Apple Podcast, Google Podcasts, and anywhere you listen to your podcast. Moshe, we'll talk to you Wednesday, man.
All right, brother.
All right, that'll be Eagles and Bucks on Wednesday. We'll turn the page to that.